Hi everyone, today we're going to talk about the rise of modern Japan. Japan's going to be an interesting little nation to talk about. It's a series of islands, not unlike Hawaii. We're going to see that Japan and China are going to share some culture and similarities, but there are going to be some major differences as well. China is just a huge mass of land with different people in different areas and regions, where Japan on the other hand, is going to be relatively small and much more similar throughout most of its areas. The big idea, we're going to talk about competition amongst countries. We're going to see that Western intervention is going to open Japan up to trade, and that this interaction between Japan and the Western nations is going to lead to a much more modern industrial Japanese society. What we're also going to find out is that after some initial resistance, many of the Japanese people in power are going to adopt fusing Japanese heritage and culture with Western ideas and modernization. Unlike China, where it's going to be specifically either all West or no West, you're going to have a fusion, if you will, of ideas outside of Japan mixed together with their traditional Japanese ideas. The main idea, Japan responding to foreign pressure. We're going to see that the United States is going to kind of put their thumb down on Japan, forcing them to sign the Treaty of Kanagawa, which opens two ports to Western trade. This is all going to happen because, ruling for over 200 years, the Tokugawa shogunate kept relations with the outside countries at a minimum and carried on a policy of isolationism. Many people were unable to get into Japan. It was a series of small islands anyway, but the ideas, again, just like that walled garden that we talked about in China, it's going to be the same idea again, where ideas, people are not going to be able to be transferred in or out for a very long time. We're going to see that the Western nations are going to realize, just like in China, that Japan is an opportunity to sell more stuff, to create another connection, to try to sell more products, but also to bring more products back home from these exotic places. We're going to see that the President of the United States at the time, Millard Fillmore, is going to send Commodore Matthew Perry to Japan. What had happened was that a few trade ships had went to Japan. They got shipwrecked. They kind of took the sailors as somewhat quasi-prisoners, and Matthew Perry was there to not only get those sailors back, but also show the European muscle. What ends up happening, concessions are going to be made by those shogunate officials after they sign the Treaty of Kanagawa with the United States. This treaty is an interesting little bit because the United States is going to politely ask, while still kind of forcing, the return of the shipwrecked American sailors and opening up two trade ports to Western nations. This treaty really is all about trying to make money. It is all about trying to show American dominance. Matthew Perry is able to bring in a substantial fleet of ships, very big ships, into the Japanese harbor and say, you're going to sign this treaty or else, and it kind of ends up forcing the Japanese to quickly adopt westernization. It also is going to establish a U.S. diplomacy in Japan. The next thing we're going to talk about, these guys here, the samurai. There is going to be an initial push back from groups of people. A group of samurai warriors called the Sacho are going to very openly oppose foreign relations with the West, and they are going to force the shogunate to promise to end those relationships. The Sacho, they were a group of samurai warriors who are going to oppose those foreign relations. So much so that the Sacho are going to attack the shogun's palace at Kyoto and cripple the shogunate, so much so that the ruling bodies, the shogunate was kind of like a loose association of like lords and vassals, so much so that they're going to collapse. And this is going to be the beginning of the Meiji Restoration, in which the Sacho up here are going to kind of be the puppet masters behind the scene, making the decisions for a newly modernized Japan. The Meiji Restoration, the big idea here, the Meiji government is going to attempt to modernize Japan's political, economic, and social structures. How? Well, the Meiji Restoration, first and foremost, they're going to put an emperor in power. The young Emperor Mushito called his reign Meiji, which meant enlightened rule. All right, and that might sound kind of familiar to you guys. What's interesting here is that even though a young Emperor Mushito is going to be the figurehead or in charge, the Satcho are really going to be the ones holding all the power. They are going to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that they have this power by moving the capital city from Kyoto to Edo. Along with that, these new leaders are going to strip the daimyos. The daimyos they're like wealthy landlords, all right, and create prefectures or territories, all right. Now, what's going to happen here? The daimyo were kind of like the lords and the vassals who oversaw everything happening in Japan for the old rulers. Now, instead, land is going to be given to the commoners. The result was going to be a political system modeled after Imperial Germany. It was democratic in form, but authoritarian in practice, meaning that the people of Japan had new freedoms, but at the same time, they were also going to possibly get into some serious trouble if they broke any of those laws. We're going to see a new imperial army created, modeled again after Imperial Germany. They are going to adopt new modernized weapons and create a new military based on like a conscription. You have to serve. This is all going to be modeled after Imperial Germany, building up their weapons, building up their army, and getting stronger. We're also going to see a new American education system based in Japan. What I mean here is they're going to adopt a lot of our educational systems, creating foreign specialists, bringing people in to teach the Japanese people about other nations, cultures, heritage, but also other information from other nations. The big idea here, we are actually going to see a major process of westernization. Even though the initial Satcho did not want Western influence, they quickly realized that what they can do is fuse Japanese culture, heritage, and tradition with Western ideas and modernization. They begin a process of westernization of the country by adopting the things that worked in other nations, which is kind of interesting. Japan is then going to, now we're up into the 1900s, Japan is going to strengthen its military and it's going to join the imperialist nations of the world. Japan, remember, it's pretty small. Just like Great Britain, Japan is going to need raw material and resources because they don't have much land. And just like Great Britain, what did Britain do? They went out and they took that land. They were imperialistic. Japan needed new raw materials, and they wanted to gain those materials by expanding their colonies, just like the European countries, just like Great Britain had done before. Imperialism. Okay, they become an imperial nation. Japan is going to take control of the Ryukyu Islands. Japan is going to then force themselves upon the Koreans to open up their trade ports and cities. Again, very similar to the Great Britain. We're actually going to see a fight break out between China, who's a much bigger nation but is more traditional, and Japan, who wanted influence over Korea. Japan wins and results in Korea's independence and then Korea's dependence then on Japanese goods and services. We're going to see that Japan is going to, again, they're going to want to use their toys, their military weapons. And in the Russo-Japanese War, Japan is going to make war with Russia. And you know what? It's going to be a conflict over port cities and who could use them. Russia thought they could just lay claim to areas. Japan fought back. And some Americans began to fear the rise of Japanese power because Japan is going to be successful. By 1907, Teddy Roosevelt is going to stop Japanese immigration to the United States. One of the interesting things here in both Japan and in China, culture and heritage is emphasized so much that many of the people view anyone from those areas being much more loyal to their mother country than to their newly adopted homelands. And this is going to lead to a rise in a new and modern culture in an area of transition. The main idea here, the culture of the Western nations is going to influence Japanese culture. They're going to kind of fuse everything together. From literature to architecture, the Japanese modeled Western styles and techniques. Western technology is going to influence Japanese culture by doing things like authors begin translating Western books and novels for the Japanese people to read. We're going to see writers begin to imitate Western styles like realism. We're going to see Japanese invite technicians, engineers, and architects from Europe and the United States to teach them modern skills in Japan. Again, the Japanese are going to fuse their culture with modern technology. By the end of the 19th century, many Japanese began to return to traditional Japanese culture, though, as well. So what we see here is a true marriage of technology and of new modern ways of living fused with like traditional culture and heritage. And that's about all we're going to talk about for today. We'll see you guys later.